And did you have to pay for it, or did you get it done for free?
No, I paid for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I paid for it with my own money because I didn't know that.
How are you affording to do all of this? So have you got a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Shit. Is he like proud to claim you?
Yeah, he is, but I just feel like
So how do you carry it?
carry the bum.
Yeah, it looks.
Hey guys, it's Murad Murali. Hopefully you guys are doing well today on this afternoon. I wanted to do a quick video because it was in demand. People were asking me to do a particular video of the breakdown analysis of the interview between ZeZe Mills and Renee that was recently done around last week. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Click that button, subscribe for daily consistent content, and definitely follow me on Instagram, Murad_Murali. I would massively appreciate it as well. Really wanted to just break down and do a slow, in-depth analysis of the interview that took place between both of these individuals, and just really go through how people liked this interview and people also disliked the interview for several reasons. Most people like this interview also because of the uncandidness, the unfilteredness, which I also agree. I do feel like ZeZe was a bit laid back with it, and I feel like she was hitting straight on the mark and not afraid and asking the questions that everybody else wanted to ask. So from that perspective, I can understand and see why some people liked her interviewing style. However, there is a sharp line between unfilteredness and uncandidness and being laid back, and also being quite rude and immature and blunt. Like, there was no need to sit back and ask somebody, you know, how do you carry your ass?
So how do you carry it?
Carry the bum.
Yeah.
Is he proud to claim you? Notice that during the interview, around the 18th or 19th minute, you can see that Renee is very quick to pop off. She gets very upset, she's fuming inside, and you can tell that she really wants to just, you know, get irritated, reply back rudely because she's being interrogated. However, she keeps her peace, her calmness, and she does not act out of anger in this particular interview or out of character. And I do find that very interesting, and I do commend her for doing so, because it can be very difficult when you're in a professional environment. A professional interview is what is being presented to you. However, the questions, the stance also comes off very unprofessional. That oxymoronic atmosphere, the oxymoronic environment can definitely play on you as an individual, and you can actually get very upset and irritated throughout the interview, and it can be a form of gaslighting as well, because you have one image being presented to you, but subvertedly you have another image being presented to you as well, and you're confused and you're conflicted and you don't know what's going on. If I was being interviewed and somebody was asking, you know, is he proud to claim you? How do you carry that? How much did it cost? And these questions, you know, are a bit too intrusive, and at the same time they come off as if somebody's being interrogated, and I don't blame Renee for being on the defense. However, she did not give the reaction that they wanted, which I feel like is what they were also looking for. But one thing that I do find quite interesting is that throughout the interview, Renee does admit that she needs to seek help, and by doing so she elaborates and says, she says, I keep allowing these people to get to me.
Yeah, obviously I've got to own my responsibility and say, you know what, you keep allowing these people to get to you. Like,
but that doesn't make any sense. How can you take on responsibility, but in the same sentence you don't take any accountability? You can't say you keep allowing these people to get to me. What you should be saying is, I'm an angry individual, I'm a temper, I'm giving them these reactions. You know, you can't say you take responsibility, and then the responsibility that you've taken is that you've allowed these people to get you to a certain level of anger and frustration. Then you're not really taking 100% responsibility. And to have this mentality and, you know, noticing this particular very careful deflection that she's doing here, what you're doing is you're subconsciously allowing yourself to continue the behavior, the very same behavior that you're saying that you're disappointed with. By attempting to take responsibility and then saying that the responsibility that you've taken is that you've allowed people to get you to a certain place, but really and truly you could have also taken responsibility for your part in making people angry, or making yourself angry, or the part of you putting yourself in a situation. So by doing so, you're deflecting subconsciously or consciously, and deflection allows one individual to maintain himself or herself in that particular environment and situation, and to continue the behavior. So that in itself I found was very interesting. I'm not going to explain or outline the stories of, you know, this Vanessa and Michael and Ford Bay nonsense beef. We've already seen all that. We already know the ins and outs of all those beefs. Me reiterating that would just be a waste of your time and my time as an individual who's watching this video. So there's no point me outlining that. This more so is about the breakdown and the analysis of the questions used, the behavior, the body language, and the type of, obviously, actions and responses from the interview and the interviewee. ZeZe also claims that Renee is using her anger and her controversy, the keyword controversy, and her beefs with other individuals and people for views and to maintain the popularity for her channel.
And did you think, because my views are not that great, I'm going to come back now with some controversial, being rowdy type of content?
But then one can also argue that having this individual on your platform and interviewing them, or even someone like me who's discussing these situations, you could also be doing it for views. You could also be doing it for a form of attention. You could also be doing it for, your own popularity or subscribers. So you need to, I feel like, have a cognitive, flexible mindset when it comes to these situations, that if you are saying somebody is doing something for views, put yourself in that person's position, or put yourself in a perspective for how people can see you. And perhaps, you could also say, I feel like it would have been nice for her to admit that, because people are also now saying all over the comments, oh, you're using Renee for views, you're using Renee for views on your channel, and so forth. So it can easily be flipped back on someone. And I did just feel like it's just important to express that point anyhow. And Renee also continued to say how she blacks out sometimes and just goes out of nowhere and just starts, getting angry and upset. But then ZeZe says, you say you black out, but you're able to record it.
You literally black out, then why do you record it? Because you've done it all on live.
And I feel like that in itself was probably one of the best counteractive questions that ZeZe could have asked when it comes to this situation. How can somebody claim to black out if they are consciously on their phone and recording situations? And of course, Renee had her own answer for it, but I just found that question to be very counteractive and it was crafted very well, because I didn't see it coming either. It's a good way to put a question back. How can you say you're XYZ, but you're using your phone, you're putting it up online? So I just wanted to get that out there as well. And I just found some of ZeZe Mills' counteractive questions to be quite effective and interesting. But she does continue with but with this black woman ratchet kind of narrative.
Acting like ratchet.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. And
just continuously, the media already think we're loud. Black men already think we're loud, or we're aggressive, and they always want to take the mick out of us wearing wigs, and there you are with your wig in your hand, literally.
And I personally feel like there's just the very notion of attributing stereotypes yourself can be troublesome, because non-black girls would not be subjected to this form of interrogation. They wouldn't be subjected to these forms of intrusive questions if you were interviewing them, I believe. So I feel like we need to keep this fair ball. And perhaps this person is angry, is upset because of their nature, their personality type, or people are irritating them. Yes, I feel like race should always play some form of subconscious level in terms of anti-blackness within people, and etc., etc. But at the same time, I feel like you should also be aware, as an interviewee, interviewing somebody, that the way you're presenting this, you're representing black girls, or I look at black girls and doing all this and I'm upset and people think we're ratchet, you're adding a layer of interrogation to that individual who you are interviewing, who also is another black girl. So I feel like if you are playing this dance of black girls are XYZ, or they're subjugate to this, or they're also seen as aggressive and angry, then why don't you have a layer of sympathy for your for your guest who is also a black girl? I don't understand. I just want people to understand the kind of wavelength I'm trying to come at. If you're constantly reiterating stereotype and racial issues, then surely you should have even more sympathy for the individual you are interviewing, who also is somebody who's attributed that stereotype. I just find that interesting. I think as an audience member and as a viewer, I feel like this interview came off very invasive. It was very judgmental, and I feel like that was just simply unwarranted, where there were just certain questions that were being asked that just came off to a point where it just came off like a form of interrogation, like somebody was just sitting down and being grilled for no reason. And I feel like as somebody who is either hosting a reunion or interviewing somebody or a plethora of people, you need to remain neutral. And I know that this neutrality that people attempt to uphold can be very difficult, because at the same time, you want to get your own feelings out there, you're sitting with that particular person, you're right opposite them, you've heard so much about them, you've seen so much about them, and now they're right there in front of you, bang, your feelings itself are irritating. You have to channel channel them and obviously sit with an individual and put your feelings to a side and just play neutral. And asking such intrusive, interrogative kind of questions kind of plays against that ball and making your guest uncomfortable, and she looked very uncomfortable to the point where she really wanted to just lash out, isn't the way forward. And you know, a lot of people are saying that they're commending Renee for not being as aggressive as they've seen her with her videos and so forth. So from that perspective, you can commend the guest for not being so, you know, irate with the situation when that irritation can be justified. I think what ZeZe Mills kind of missed is that she could have used this and utilized this interview to get a deeper, emotional, in-depth perspective from Renee, because that's not what we see from her from when she's had beef in X, Y, Z with so many people. So to get that stance, that perspective would have been refreshing, it would have been different, it would have been actually quite nice to see. And also, that's why I feel like these interviews are for, to sit down and allow that person to explain situations in a calm and collected manner, which is what she was attempting to do, without using consistent intrusive kind of questions, and you know, the body language as well, and to just the way you're marking and shaping and crafting these questions for your guests just comes up as a way where you're not playing neutral, your feelings are, you know, being perversed into the interview, and therefore by doing so consciously or mainly, and most of the time subconsciously, you are losing the main pot of gold here, which is where you can get a deeper, whole different emotional side from a particular guest of yours that can be enlightening for you, the audience. It can be enlightening for us as viewers to say, wow, they're having a deep, interesting conversation, the connection, like this interview is very real, realism can be very important, and to get that important pot of gold kind of perspective, you need to be neutral, calm and collected and laid back. And that's also whether it could be an active or passive aggressive manner. And I feel like at times ZeZe Mills was actually being quite passive aggressive, and it was just unnecessary to be asking certain questions about how do you carry it, like is he proud to claim you? We're not going to talk about this particular individual, but we're going to do it anyways. Like, I just feel like that particular passive aggressive kind of stance is needed because you're already putting your guests in an uncomfortable spot. And once they're in an uncomfortable spot, it's hard for them to actually lay back and lay out even more information so they can be more cleaner and understandable for the audience. I personally did find this interview quite interesting, but at the same time I feel like there's just a certain type of body and character that an interviewee needs to hold when you're interviewing a particular guest on the show. And although it's very hard, and it probably looks easier said than done, but it is actually very hard, I can imagine, for ZeZe or anybody in ZeZe's position to not put her feelings out there, front line, front row seat, front street. Like, it's very hard for somebody not to do that. So, you know, you can commend ZeZe obviously for attempting to do her best as an interviewee, and I feel like we definitely should, because I feel like some of her counteractive questions were very important and vital, and I like how she was quick off the bat with them as well. I also do like what this interview was that it wasn't too long. It was only 25 minutes, 20 minutes. That's a perfect amount, because a lot of people don't have enough time to watch an hour of somebody. We don't need an hour. We don't need 5 minutes. That's too short. But 20 minutes, 25 is perfect. So I also like the fact that that was done. In terms of how they were sitting together, I thought that was interesting. And the reason why I say this is because they're directly facing each other. This in itself already comes off in a form of a confrontational, passive-aggressive, subconscious manner. And the reason why I say that is because they're not sitting on a round table. They're not sitting, you know, laid back together. They're not sitting next to each other. They're not sitting, you know, where there's a particular equal amount of far distance, which is where interviews normally happen, where somebody's at a desk and the other person is quite far away. They're quite close to each other, as if they're at lunch or whatever. So you have this kind of closeness between them two, this proximity, where some people can easily use that as a form of interrogation, but at the same time it also looks like as if they're both having a lunch. They're both chained together, both relaxed. So you have both type of perceptions going on at the same time, which I also find to be quite interesting. So this was obviously in demand from quite a lot of people, so I thought I'd sit down and actually watch the interview properly and do an extensive breakdown analysis from the perspective of both the interviewee and the guests. I just do find it very interesting how Renee was very close to pop off at a particular point, because the constant interrogation was going too much, and as a guest, as somebody who's being interviewed, you know, you have to also look at it for future guests who may see that interview and be like, I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be interviewed like that. I don't appreciate the intrusive questions. I don't appreciate that stance. I don't appreciate the way somebody's coming at me like that in a passive-aggressive manner. I don't appreciate it. So I don't want to have to be sitting there and give an explanation for my entire race. Like, it's stuff like this. Like, I don't want to be doing this. They might just want to, you know, push themselves away. Please do let me know what you guys think about it. If you guys agree or disagree with me, I'd massively appreciate it. Subscribe. Click that button. I'll massively appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram, Miraj_Morali. I'll be grateful for that too. And I'll definitely catch you guys soon.